quick. Do any of you guys out there have any children that at any point or currently tell them repeatedly when they're unhappy, you're not going to be my best friend? Because I don't know where Riley got it. My kids never did it. But when she gets angry, she just says it to Kin. She says it to me. She says it to Ben. You're not going to be my best friend. And I'm like, it's an amazing line.
Yeah, it's so
It's
funny.
genius.
I got you, yeah, my crew. We alley you, yeah, alley you, yeah. 'Cause we do what we do. We alley you, yeah, alley you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Pan and Unicorn, the relationship podcast, episode 9.
Great intro.
Yeah.
We're back.
We're back.
Episode 9.
Getting the
Numero
energy pumped
Let's
up.
go.
I got my tea.
I got my hot water.
I'm
We're
tired.
good to go.
I know. You're so weird for drinking hot water.
Am I weird for drinking
He
hot
literally
water?
doesn't put anything in it. He doesn't put like honey in it, lemon in it, nothing. He just drinks hot. Like every single time I get it from Starbucks, they literally kind of like make it. You just want hot water, and I'm like, yeah, just hot water.
All right. Anybody else just drink hot water? If you do, put it in the comments.
Put in the comment down
or
below.
feel free to make fun of me. It's all good.
so
I know
funny.
I'm weird.
We make fun of him over here at the podcast studio. But anyways, welcome back, you guys. Make sure you're following us on all our socials. Everything is at Pan and Unicorn. It's linked down below. Also sign up for the newsletter. Sorry, I have not been putting the newsletter link in the description box. I keep forgetting to add it in the original template, but it is there. Sign up for that newsletter. We're doing giveaways in the newsletters that you guys can enter. It's awesome, and it will give you all the updated information of new episodes and notifications. And yeah, so babe, what do we do every episode?
Send some love. Have you
Send
guys
some
been
love.
sending love? I hope so. Get out your phone. Your
Mm-hmm.
parents, your sister, your brother, your cousins, your friends, your loved ones, your mentors, your teachers. Send them some love.
Yes.
Also, we have Send Some Love merch coming up on the store here. in
I
the next
know.
week or
I
two.
asked you guys on Instagram what logos you like better. And so thank you for all your input there. It really helps us decide on what we're going to put up on the store. All right. Okay, so babe, who are you sending love
Who'd you
to?
send love to?
Well, I sent love to one of my really good friends since 6th grade, Monica. It's hard to it's basically, she's like one of those friends that if I don't see for a while, but then we see each other and then we just like really just start off where the last time that we, left off at. We have a really good relationship. She's another mom. It sucks that she lives so far away. She lives in Michigan. So I don't get to see her very often, but she's got 3 kids and she's doing awesome as a mom. So I was actually catching up with her a little bit yesterday. And so I sent her some love saying that I miss her and I hope that I could see her again soon.
Awesome, babe.
Mm-hmm.
Proud of you.
What about you?
I sent love to my sister.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to Carrie.
Happy birthday.
It was just her birthday yesterday. For all of you listening, I have a very supportive sister in Atlanta, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically this year has been probably the hardest year of my life. And she's been there. Very supportive.
Yeah.
Very loving.
Yeah, your sister's awesome.
Thanks, Carrie. I appreciate it.
We
I love you.
Carrie. So basically, a quick recap of last week's episode. We talked all about surviving the first holiday season after divorce, which is very hard. It's not easy. We're going into our second holiday season right now after divorce, which is very different from the last one.
Yeah.
So we recapped that whole episode. So if you are going through that right now, make sure you tune in for that episode. I hope that we gave some helpful tips to you and could help you to show that you're not alone in it and that it is definitely hard.
And definitely reach out to us during the holidays. We're going to be around on social and we want to hear from all of you. And if any of you guys are feeling lonely or, don't have your kids or don't have a typical holiday that you're used to, hit us up. We're
Yes.
around.
We're here to help and support you guys as much as we can. And then going into today's episode, babe.
In this episode, like I said, we both spoke to our parents and they gave us some, great answers and conversation and questions. And so we'll start with Madison. So
Yeah.
Madison, when you spoke to your mom, like what were her fears when you told her Mom, I'm getting a divorce?
So when I asked my mom, she texted me back a whole long list of things that were her fears and everything. The first thing for her, and I think is probably one of the biggest things with my parents, is the children's safety. And I think it's not like all the time, but it's predominantly when they go out to a place called Laughlin, the river. And the reason why is because I have lost friends out there to drunk drivers. My family has lost, one of their family friends lost their daughter out there to drowning. And it's just extremely scary. Also, it's just you have drunk drivers, you have crazy people that are partying like insanely, and then you also have extreme weather conditions. I remember one time we went out there, it was 126 degrees. It was just so dangerous to be out there with kids.
Yeah, so my fear, just so you guys know, is I've never been there. I don't know what it is. It's just obviously a bunch of, drunk people on a boat, and it's super hot in the middle of the desert.
It's just no
But
place
my
for
fear was
kids.
just for kids. It's just like being in 110, 120 degree dry heat, where, are they being hydrated? Are they in the sun too long? It's just, for me, that was kind of
That it's like the heat, but it's also the fact like when my parents, they never really liked it when we went out there, but what gave them peace of mind is knowing that I was going to be with them. And that I would be like on top of everything. Like I have the Pedialyte, I've got their life jackets on, I've got everything. I was always on top of Riley. But Riley does not know how to swim. So that's another fear of mine, is because I know the family will drink, and I'm like wondering, okay, I would never drink out there. I would be 100% sober, because I'm like, if I have a child near water, you will not see me drinking. And I
think, to be honest, like, as there's people listening to this, grandparents listening to this, thinking their grandchildren, like, my parents said this, like, safety.
Yeah, it's
like,
safety.
It's always about child safety, and I think water scares all parents. Pools scare all grandparents. I think, my parents have friends that have lost grandchildren. I think most people know somebody who's lost a child or a grandchild to water.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising that your mom's immediate fear was just the river.
Yeah, it's just with the water, with drowning, and then people not being so on top of it because intoxication or too busy doing something else.
It's scary.
So it's really scary, and it's still hard for my parents to this day, and they dread every summer season now because they're just so worried. And I worry too, and it sucks that I can't control that. So that's like one of their biggest fears is honestly the river. Another thing that my mom was really scared about and just fears is the new schedule. How is the new schedule going to affect the kids? Because another thing is the girls were always with me. They weren't bouncing back from house to house. But one of our situations is kind of different than a lot of people's situations is we have no set schedule. Like with Ross, and his schedule is he's got Max like every Tuesday, Bo every Thursday, both kids every Sunday. I don't have a set schedule that I can tell Riley, this is when you're going to dad's, this is when you're here with me, and it's like to be consistently the same. So it's a lot harder on them because sometimes they'll see dad for like a day, or sometimes they'll see dad for 3 days. And it's so inconsistent, and that's really hard on the kids. So my mom was really worried and concerned about how they were going to handle it. Also, another thing is I've got my routines and my schedules and bedtimes and everything, and that keeps them sane, that keeps them healthy. But, with them now going with their dad, he doesn't know the same routines or the same schedules, or he might push them to be out later at night and when they should be in bed, and then they end up being sick. So it's really, that's another fear that they have of how this is going to affect them as they grow up.
I think anybody listening that has children, specifically young children, know how important the schedules are, and know how important sleep is, and know how important just the kids' bodies get used to eating at the same times, napping at the same time, sleeping at the same times. And so naturally, when even for me, my kids are older, just going through a divorce, I think anybody out there who's, gone through this, the shuffling of the kids back and forth from different beds to different routines to different food, it's really, really, really hard on the kids.
Yeah.
And for your girls being so young, and I can't even imagine what your mom was thinking. I mean, she had to have been so scared, and then it makes it even harder that there's no schedule. You
Yeah.
never know when he'll be in town or when he won't be in town, or
You
what
never
days
know.
he'll take them or he won't take them. And even if he says he will take them, it doesn't mean he does take them. So it's
Yeah.
like really hard on the kids. And it's something that Madison and I are going to have to deal with, moving forward for, probably forever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those things where we're feeling it out, learning it now, and see what happens in the future. But I can definitely feel your mom's fear there.
Yeah, because it's definitely one of the hardest things that I would say in our situation is how
And it's going to get
inconsistent
harder
it
for
is.
the girls as they get older.
As they get older and more aware of everything. I know Riley right now is like, I want to see dad. I want to see dad. And I'm like, I'm sorry, he can't be here right now. We say he's at the racetrack because he's at the racetrack. Or she's like, I want to FaceTime dad. I'm like, I'm sorry, he's on a plane. And she's like, I don't want to be your best friend. Call him. And I'm like, I called him, and I'll call him in front of her, and he doesn't answer. And I'm just like, those are the really, really hard things, because I can't tell her is like when you're going to see dad, because sometimes we have a set schedule, but then also a few days beforehand it can change. So it's just a really, really tough thing. So I definitely, that's also one of my fears. It sucks. And I can really empathize with my mom on that one.
Real quick, do any of you guys out there have any children that at any point or currently tell them repeatedly when they're unhappy, you're not going to be my best friend? Because I don't know where Riley got it. My kids never did it. But when she gets angry, she just says it to Kin. She says it to me. She says it to Ben. You're not going to be my best friend. And I'm like, it's an amazing line.
So
It's
funny.
genius.
It's so funny. Oh, I think she did it again this morning, didn't she?
Yeah.
She was like, you're not going to be my best. Oh, I forgot what it was about. I think it was something about the shoes or something. I don't know, but I got told I was going to be her best friend, and I said, well, I'm going to be your mom. So she's a character. Another thing that my mom was really fearful, or is still really fearful about, is how I was going to handle the kids, work, house, financials as a single mom. Honestly, I don't think it's about kids and work so much and the house, because I was already doing that for so many years on my own. It's the financial part. With financials is when you build a house or a family, and you build a lifestyle with two incomes, and you take one of those incomes away. It's really hard to support everything that you already originally had on just one income. And, things change over time, especially in this career. It's ebb and flow. It could be really great one month. It could be really bad the next month. It could be really great one year. It could be really bad the next year. So in my business, you never know exactly what you're going to get every month. You never know exactly what you're going to get every year, which is extremely stressful. And then when you have that stress on top of, I got to be present and hands-on and raise my girls and spend time with them. And then also I have to manage a house with two little dogs, make sure that the house is clean, make sure that the house is stocked up with food, make sure that everything's working in the house. That's also extremely stressful. And then also now you're okay, you have to be able to make enough money to support everything then, like to put the food on the table, to keep the lights running, to do all that. So it's really hard and it sucks. But I think that's like one reason why a lot of like women, like stay-at-home moms or something, tend to stay in a really unhealthy marriage, is because of that fear. And it's hard. And it sucks.
And I think your mom honestly would have that fear if you're still married. I think just any parent who has grandchildren is worried that their kids can handle it all. The kids, the work, the house, the financials, all of that is extremely difficult with two parents. Then all of a sudden you get divorced and you're doing it all alone. Of course, like she's going to be really, really scared and worried and concerned that your stress level and that you're going to be able to handle it all.
I think that concern, it wasn't really when I was married, because because we made it work, and I just did it all. But again, with the financials is that was the biggest thing, is I had someone to fall back on. If the girls were sick, like, you know, I mean, a lot of single parents can understand this. When your kids are sick and you can't work for a week, then I had a spouse who was still working and making money. Okay, like, hey, I'm going to have a bad month this month because I wasn't able to put enough time to work because I had sick kids. I had their income to fall back on and being like, okay, we're going to be just fine. But now I'm like, if I take off a week of work and don't have that time to film and get stuff done, that's a week of work of income that I'm going to be losing, and it's going to make it harder. I'm going to lose more money in my accounts. I'm going to that's the difference, is I don't have a person that I can fall back on. That's the difference. And that's the biggest fear. When I was married, that like financials weren't a problem. And I just handled it all on my own. I think it made it easier to handle things on my own because of that, like financial, like that's like the one thing that it was scary when I thought about divorce. Like, could I handle this? But in all honesty, I knew I was going to be happier out of the marriage, even though the financial part is really, really tough and really stressful. The next thing that my mom was really concerned about, and I think this comes from every grandparent, is the holidays. I actually just spoke to my ex's mom. We had a really good conversation recently. And she's like, you know, we're all just learning right now. We've never endured a divorce or anything. And she goes, we're all trying to, like, you know, learn to accept that, you know, we don't have the kids. We have to share the kids for holiday seasons. And that's hard. That's hard on both grandparents' sides. Knowing that, you know, one year I'm going to have the girls for Thanksgiving, then I'm not going to have them for Christmas with my family. When my family, like my mom says, like, we are huge on holidays and we love our family get-togethers for the holidays. And to know that we're not going to have Riley and Kinsley with us every single holiday season or every single holiday, she goes, that's really tough. That's really hard because we don't want to lose those memories with them. What were your parents' fears?
So when I spoke to my parents and asked them about their fears when I told them, and it was kind of funny listening to like what my dad said versus what my mom said. Yeah. But in general, both of them never really cared too much about me. They were like, we kind of knew you'd be fine. We figured you'd figure it out. My mom's like, you're social. We knew you'd meet someone. Yeah. I kind of laughed at that. But their obviously main fear was just the grandchildren. Just how would it affect their relationship with their two grandchildren? Mm-hmm. They've heard a lot of stories from their friends who either had bad divorces mm-hmm. and then didn't get to be with their kids, mm-hmm. or friends of theirs whose kids went through divorce and then that hurt their relationship with their grandchildren. Yeah. And so they were deathly scared of not seeing the kids as much, having my ex or her family, you know, talk poorly about them mm-hmm. or try to kind of strain that relationship. Why do you think your parents feared that? I think it just got put in their head that it happens all the time, and maybe it happened to one person, and now that means it happens all the time. And mm-hmm. you know, I'm the first person in our immediate family to go through a divorce, so they don't have experience with it, mm-hmm. And so it's kind of hearing what the horror stories. I don't think you really hear too many of the good ones. I mean, hopefully there's a lot of good ones out there. I think there are. Yeah, but I think that
we hear some good ones.
We hear good ones, and and the comments are amazing.
Yeah.
Like we heard a comment today from, I don't know her name, but she said that, you know, her parents were divorced, and then she got, you know, 2 sets of parents, and so she had 4 parents, and mm-hmm. all the step parents were great, and all the parents were great.
Saying that she just felt even more loved. Yeah, and it was great. Those are the ones that you love to hear.
Yeah, those are our goals. Yeah. So I think parents' bigger fear, relationship with the grandkids. And then they said that they were scared, nervous, not really sure. What would their relationship be like with my ex mm-hmm. And my ex's family? Yeah. Because, you know, my parents got, you know, decently close to my ex's parents and mm-hmm. family and, you know, sister and their friends as well. And so I think that's always kind of a fear which makes sense. It's like, okay, you know, how's my relationship going to be with them? And yeah, I think that they're sad.
Yeah.
I think they would like to have a better relationship with my ex and her parents and her family. And hopefully in time, you know, they can. And I also think they just feel like that's what's best for their grandchildren.
Yeah, it's good for their grandchildren to see happiness and everyone getting along all around and having everyone in the same, like, same house, same room, everything. I think that's huge for them.
Huge. And I think it's, you know, trying to set that example. And at the same time, you know, my parents, you know, understand they can't control that. It's not totally up to them. And that's a fear as well, right? Of like, what can we control? What can we not control? And
Exactly.
so I think
also just like, you know, once a divorce is so fresh,
right.
there's so much anger, resentment, animosity there with everyone that once a few years or a year or so down the line, when everyone starts to heal and move on, then I think that like those doors can open.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because I think a lot of people, like we're going to be talking in our next episode, is a lot about boundaries.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you need to establish right when you get divorced, because there is so much hurt. And then once those boundaries are in place and everyone is like healing and coping with everything, and those types of relationships can open back up.
Yeah, and my parents are two of the most social people. They have legitimately hundreds of friends.
Yeah, they are.
And they're just not the type to kind of hold grudges or have fights or kind of...
They're the most warm-hearted, inviting people I have ever met. They like instantly just like were so kind to me. So just like I felt just a part of the family immediately. And you don't get that very often, especially like so closely after divorce. You know how, you know, parents could be like a little worried and a little bit closed off, guards up. Not with his parents. They've always been so sweet, and they're just like honestly just really good-hearted people.
Yeah. So I think to have that fear so far, I think their fears have come down a little bit, that because they do have a good relationship still with their grandchildren. They get to see their grandchildren a lot. My ex has been good about allowing them to continue that relationship.
Well,
and
I
have
feel
that
like your
relationship.
kids have also your kids have spent a lot more time with them, because you guys are like, you know, speaking with your family when you guys back in like the past years when you were married, you spent a lot with her family.
Yeah,
and now
I mean,
over the last year, you've been able to spend more time.
It's fun, right? Madison brings up a good point, which is like, if I stayed single moving forward, all the times I have my kids for the holidays, my parents and family get the kids for the holidays and they get them more. Now, if I have a relationship with Madison, how are we going to divide that up? Because it goes right back to, well, we can't only take the kids with my family on the holidays. We have to spend some holidays with your family. So how's that going to affect my family? But ultimately, you know, both of our parents are going to have to understand that moving forward, both of us might not have our kids for the holidays, and we also might have both of our kids.
Your parents are probably like, damn it, we finally got him back, and now he's being taken away from us again.
Exactly.
I promise Molenbeek I won't take him.
And yeah, so I think overall that was their biggest fear. Kids, their grandchildren, and then relationship with ex. And then, you know, my mom, you know, I think not jokingly, but jokingly, it was kind of like very scared that her son was going to be a single dad, and
how he's going to handle it.
And kind of understanding that now she sees me do it, and then I have to like take pictures when I cook for my kids of the food so I can show her like, hey mom, I actually cook for my children, because and they actually eat it.
Asking me, and she goes, does he cook for them, or does he just make bagels? And
I literally on Sunday, so 2 days ago, Max wanted pasta. We went to the store. We bought the exact noodles she wanted. I made her pasta, and then she asked for seconds. So I had to tell my mom, not only did I make it, but she asked for seconds. And so, you know, I think naturally that makes sense, right? Is, you know, and I can just tell you, I mean, I know there's mostly women that listen to this, and all the women kind of have the same attitude, which is like, well, that's just what we do, and we do it all the time, and you know, guys don't know, and
Stress.
but for all the men out there listening, we can all do it, and we can all do it very well.
Yeah.
Just because we don't do it all the time or didn't do it all the time, or we're not the default parent. There's a lot of single dads out there, and they crush it. And yeah, I'm learning, but like, and I admit, like, it's not super easy, especially when I have the two kids together, and you know, you come home and you got to cook for them. You got to get them bathed. You got to do all the laundry. You're constantly cleaning up after them. Got to make their, you know, get their medicine, get their stuff for school in the morning, make their lunches for school, get them dressed for school, get them to school on time while they're fighting, get the house cleaned up, go to the store. Yeah, I get it that it makes perfect sense. And my mom had a fear of that. At the same time, you know, it's all men are capable of doing it.
They are. You know, I've actually encountered so many more men recently that are actually that do the cooking for the house and are actually really good cooks. I've even like came across one in the pickleball group, like Jason, and he made this whole charcuterie board and everything. It was like so fancy at one of our I'm like, oh my God, you did this? He's like, yeah, I do all the cooking in the house. I do the grocery shopping. And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Shout out to Jason.
And then Pat is the same thing. Like my sister's husband, Pat is the cooker.
My brother-in-law cooks a lot of the meals.
Keith does too. Yeah.
Shout out to Keith.
Yeah.
So
men can do it.
Yeah. So
power to the ones that do.
Yeah. And so that was definitely a fear of hers. And you know, I think on that topic, and we're going to talk about co-parenting in the next episode, but I think that, you know, part of the mom's job is to understand that, hey, the kids are going to be with dad. And, you know, dad maybe didn't do all this stuff in the past, but, you know, give dad some grace. Let him try it. He will fail in the beginning and make mistakes, but over time, any good dad is going to make their kids happy and figure it out. And so, yeah. And at the same time, it takes a village, right? Like Madison helps me a lot with stuff for the kids, specifically, you know, shopping and clothes shopping and getting organized. And so, you know, I don't have parents out here. I don't have a sister out here. I don't have any cousins out here. I don't have family in San Diego. So that does make it a little bit harder. But
yeah, a lot harder because you don't really have anyone to count on, to lean on.
So
well, you have a co-parent. You do have someone to lean on. You have a co-parent that's there 24/7. Like if Max is sick and wants to go back with mom, moms will be there like to count on you. And then if you need helping, like if she needs help with you, she reaches out to you to go pick up medicine at the pharmacy when she has the kids. So you guys do have a solid person to lean on. So when you need it.
Yeah. So anyway, we thought it would be good to kind of have this conversation and, you know, talk to our parents, kind of understand their fears. And it was really helpful. I think it was good for our parents to kind of talk about it, good for us to talk about it.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys kind of understand their perspective. There might be some people listening who are divorced and thinking about their parents, or you're a grandparent and our kids. But what it also made us do was think about us and what we would do if we were in our parents' shoes. And if our children, you know, ever get a divorce and we have grandchildren. And so
I do want to ask like the audience just like one question. Like in the comments down below, if you have gone through a divorce, how did your parents handle it with you? What were the things that you liked about how they handle it, and what were the things that you didn't like how they handle it? Like I would love to hear from you guys, because you know every situation, every experience is so different. And we love hearing a lot from you guys. So before we get into that next one, I would just love for you guys to leave that down below. But yeah, so now going into basically, what if our kids ever went through a divorce?
And so I said to Madison, like, what would you do? Like if one of our kids like was going through divorce, like what would your fears be?
Well, my fears would be like, fuck, I thought like I could stop the cycle, and I thought I would teach them what to look out for. But you know, you can't protect them from everything. And there's a number of things that I'd be so worried about. I have 2 little girls. One of them, Riley, is so emotional. I would be really concerned about how they would be affected emotionally in their marriage to get to that point. Is what did they go through to get them to that point? What did they endure? Because I remember everything that I endured in my marriage and what I went through. And I would never want my child to go through that. So that would be really just scary for me, just seeing like, okay, how did this affect them? What were they going through to get to this point? So I'd be really worried about
Question
that.
for you on that.
Mm-hmm.
So if we get married and you have Bo and Max, will you look at it differently from if Bo were to get divorced and if the girls were to get divorced? Like, do you think you would look at it differently from a boy's point of view or a girl's?
If I have to be like completely honest, I think I could probably unconsciously do that. Just, I don't know, like that's not a good answer, but I think unconsciously.
Honesty's good.
Yeah, unconsciously. But then again, like, I think that's why this podcast is also so great, is because we're seeing it from your perspective too. Because again, we always see that the woman's hurt. And it would also break my heart that he would go through that if he went through something like that too. Yeah, I never thought about it from a boy's perspective. Guess that's narrow-minded of me.
Oh yeah, I wondered too. I was thinking, do you think my parents would have handled it differently if my sister went through it versus me?
I think so. I think that parents are naturally more, what's the word? More concerned about the emotional well-being of a girl over a boy for some, like it's just stereotypes, I'm guessing. Just society stereotypes. It's kind of like ingrained in us.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So,
but honestly, babe, I think with you though too is that you're such an independent, mentally strong person, and your parents know that about you. And so maybe that's why they weren't as concerned, which is not an excuse. But I think that's like, you really are a very strong, and like, I've never met someone who was more mentally tough as you. Like, it's scary. Even like on the courts, it's freaking scary how mentally strong you are.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
It's still no excuse, but.
All right. So emotionally affecting them was what your fear would be. What else would you be scared of? What else are your fears that one of our kids goes through this?
How they would handle the single parent life. It's kind of like the same thing with raising kids, like, going through the same struggles that I've gone through. I wouldn't want that for them. So I know, like, if I had my kids go through divorce, I probably would be there 150 freaking % for them, for the kids, and helping them out as much as I can, because I know how hard it was.
Yeah, so that's good. We have this on YouTube for the next, 20, 30 years in case it happens. And Madison's going to be there 150%, just so you kids know.
Yeah.
It does kind of make me think, too, about, what kind of my mom's fear was for me and kind of your fear of the single parent life, which leads me to, should we, as the kids get older, really be making sure that they could be a single parent and understand what those roles are and really speak to them about it?
I think like one thing that I'm going to be really like talking with the kids about is when they do have a significant other, is to really appreciate the things that they do for them, acknowledge that the good things that they do for them for help for the kids, and then also teaching them how to voice their opinions on, like, in a communicative, productive way of if they need more help from the other parent to help out with the kids, is teaching them that.
Yeah, it also made me think about making sure that, the kids, and again, stereotypical, the girls usually know how, or supposedly know how, the guys don't, but like,
not really.
Cooking, cleaning, organizing.
It depends on it's like again, like falling into that stereotype, but like I've even seen it from people close to me, of where I see the the husband does more for the kids than the mom does.
Yeah, there's a lot of women out there that aren't organized, that aren't clean, that aren't great at cooking, that, I mean, it's not like every single woman has all those skills, but it just goes to like, okay, if we're worried about them someday being a single
I just
parent.
feel like what happens with society is everyone's so stuck on, it's changing. It's changed a lot. And I think this is why also divorce is becoming such a big thing, because like women are just like fed up, or like, you cannot expect us. Because before it was like, expect the woman to stay home, handle the house, manage the kids, do all that while the husband worries just solely about working. I think that's starting to change now that you have 2-income households, that it's like the moms are like, well, I'm working too, and then I'm having to do all this for the kids. You're not doing just as much for the kids. You're not doing the housework. Why am I doing all of this and all you have to worry about is work? And that's where they're getting fed up. Is like, it should be more egalitarian, like an egalitarian household where everyone is equal. If I'm making money for this house and you're making money for the house, then we both need to be putting the time into the kids. We both need to be putting time into the house. It should be equal.
Okay.
So I think that's
Good job.
a big thing. Sorry.
You guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think it should be equal.
Okay. We'll divide up and divide and conquer. On the next topic, what else would, as if our kids were to get divorced, what else fears would you have for them?
Financially. Because I think it's just me realizing all of my fears and what I'm going through and the struggles that I go through, the hardships that I go through. I would never want my kids to go through that. And I would be really worried about them financially.
But how can you avoid it? I mean, they were going from a 2-income house to one. There's no way that financially they're going to be in the same place. Like, you can say I would never want them to go through it, but I mean, their life is going to change financially, and it's very scary.
And I think if I had my girls going through it, where I don't know where I would be at that time, but I would hope that I would be at a situation in my life where I can help them as much as I can to make that transition easier for them and not let them feel like they're stuck just because they can't afford their life on their own financially. So I would work with them the best that I can and help them as much as I can.
Yeah, agreed. That's why we will continue to work so hard is to, make sure that, like you said, we can prepare for that in case they need our help financially.
Exactly. Yeah. So, babe, what are your fears if your kids ever went through divorce? What would your fears be?
Honestly, like where I went with this was mental health. You kind of said emotions, but just if they are, hopefully, this is my hope. And, part of this is why we did this podcast originally. It was to help high school kids and college kids learn all this stuff and learn from our stories and learn from our examples so that they can have these healthy relationships. And personally, for our kids or my kids, I am hoping, I just don't know if it's realistic. And so for all you guys listening, you guys could probably tell me I'm crazy, but I'm hoping that I have a good enough relationship with my children that during their dating periods into, if they get engaged and into their marriage, I'm hoping that I have very good communication with them and they feel comfortable telling me what's really going on in their relationship, and I have a good handle on how they're doing with their mental health. And I'm stressing to them how important it is that they really take care of their mental health and for their spouse, whoever they, and I'm hoping I have a good enough relationship with their spouse that they can come to me as well.
Exactly.
And I can have a conversation with them because I know my kids aren't going to be perfect, and I want to make sure that that happens. With that said,
that's great. I just have to say that's very admirable of you, because I feel like so many parents in this day and age put their kids on pedestals that they can do no wrong. And to be wanting to be able to be a person that even your kid's spouse could go to, like if they're having troubles, and be like, if you need to talk to me, you need help with, handling something, I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to listen to you. Because I tried that. And I'm definitely
going to make the spouse watch the podcast.
Yeah.
They're on all episodes before they're allowed to date the girls. And Bo, you watch all episodes before you even think about becoming part of this family. So my point in that is I'm hoping I kind of have an idea of their mental health before, and an understanding of what's been going on in their marriage before it comes to, hey, I'm getting divorced. Because I know my dad's comment to me was the hardest part regarding me was that he was sad that I was so unhappy for so long and he didn't know.
Yeah. Your whole family, no one knew.
So he was sad that he was like, man, for years you were in this bad relationship, this unhealthy marriage. You were unhappy. You were depressed. You felt like, you didn't know what you were going to do. The fact he didn't know and the fact I went through that, it was hard. So I'm hoping that I don't have that with my children. But if I do at some level.
Why did you think that you couldn't go to your parents and talk to them? Because your parents are so easy to talk to.
My parents never really had a lot of conversations with me about anything that was too deep or too serious. And my dad struggles with it more than my mom. But so that's part of it. And then I think part of it was, which is wrong, is I was always concerned about what they would think about my ex if I told them the truth about what was going on. And I didn't want to ruffle that relationship between my ex and my parents, which is already strained a little bit. It wasn't going great all the time. And so I didn't want to make it worse if I was going to stay with her. I also had fear for my kids. And like, if I told my parents everything that's going on, like how would that affect them and the kids? And, what would my mom say and who would she say it to?
Yeah.
And so I think, not right or wrong, but my parents never came to me and asked me. So I'm going to go to my kids and ask them.
So it's like with you, you had to get to that point where you knew everything was done and that you didn't want to try anymore, that you're ready to like let go of it all before you could tell your family.
Yes.
Like that's what you had to get to. What if your kids have to do the same?
They might, but I think what I'm trying to say, and this is kind of my advice for all the parents out there who have children, whether they're married or not, is as they have boyfriends and girlfriends and hoping that when they're in high school and college is continuing to ask them, how are they doing? How is the relationship? Are you happy? What are you not happy about? What would you change about it? And how are they treating you emotionally? How's your mental health through all this? Because I think if the parents continue to ask their kids these questions, it'll kind of force the kids, even if they're embarrassed or they don't really want to answer or they're not emotionally ready, they'll at least get comfortable over time with it.
Also, it would force the kids to address the issues in the relationship. Because sometimes I feel like when we're young, we're so naive that we kind of like try to push little things like underneath the rug. We're like, oh, like what might be like a red flag or something. We kind of push it and we make excuses for it. But then I think if our parents talked to us and said, hey, what have you thought about this? Like, how are you doing? And then it forces the kids to address it. Those things
and I also think that
the rug.
a part of the relationship podcast and all these things we're going to be doing moving forward are having tough conversations, having conversations that aren't easy, that aren't fun, because it's a society which don't really have them. So I'm not mad at my parents per se, because I don't think any of my friends, when I talk to them, did your parents ask you these questions? They say no, 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 no. But my point is I'm trying to say that hopefully I know a lot that's going on with my children before they come to me and say that they're getting divorced. And I already saw it was coming and I prepared them for it, and that they understand it's okay, and that they can, if they're not happy or they're in an unhealthy relationship, it's perfectly okay. People change over time. So supportive. I think that the next step would be if they had children, same conversation. How are my grandchildren's mental health? How are they doing it? How are they speaking to their kids? I admitted it. I didn't do a great job speaking to my kids. I'm doing a better job now. But if my child came to me and said, I'm getting divorced, and they already had children, my immediate attention, like our parents, would go to the grandchildren. Like, okay, how old are the grandchildren? What do they know? What don't they know? What have you spoken to them? How do you plan to speak to them? How do you plan to communicate with them? And just really have those conversations. Yeah. And so that would be my fear. And I think hopefully I can help, because I've gone through it, you've gone through it. And so I can have this conversation of like to the grandchildren, depending on their age, hey, your parents went through this. They've been through it. I've been through it. We're going to get you through this. We're going to help you. But obviously, I want to really understand how we're communicating with the grandchildren. Like, my parents never said to me, how they ask all the time, like, how are your kids doing? Which is a tough question because it's like, well, I mean, they're not doing great. I mean, what do you want me to say? But they don't have the ability to say, like, have you spoken about this? Or have you tried this? Or what do you say when they say this? They don't know that because they've never done it. So I think it's just communicating with the kids would really be important. And then I think for me personally, depending on what was going on in the relationship, being just brutally honest is like, how will I handle my relationship with our children's ex and their family? I think it's something that is important, which
How
is...
would you, I have a question. If you were your parents, how would you have handled your ex?
I think it's about the relationship before the divorce and really having those lines of communication. I think in this specific situation, I think they tried a little bit they want a good relationship.
Yeah.
That's what they want. But I think they've tried to have a good relationship with my ex and her family. And I think they want that. I just think that that side has made it extremely difficult for now.
Yeah.
And so it's not that I would tell them that they should have done anything differently. I don't think they did anything wrong or did anything that they could do different. But I think that would be one of my fears. And one of my things would be, okay, let's say that one of our girls ends up coming to us and saying, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm getting a divorce. My husband cheated on me. He's been cheating on me. It's been bad. I can't take it anymore. The trust is gone. Okay, what do we do about the ex, right? Like, how do we have that relationship? So that's a fear of mine.
That'd be hard.
That's a tough one.
I probably want to kill him.
Yeah, I think so.
I wouldn't be able to hold back on that one.
No, Madison's wouldn't be holding back. So maybe I'd be holding you back.
Yeah.
So look, I think this episode was important. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully there was some good stuff in there. I think it's really good for Madison and I to talk about it from our parents' perspective and understand that, when you're going through this divorce, like, it affects everybody.
Yeah.
It affects your family, your parents, your uncles, your sisters, your brothers, your friends. And we're not naive to that.
It sucks, though. It really sucks because that puts a lot of guilt. I feel like I have a lot, it's like guilt. And it's like, God, like, how, like, you feel like you're to blame, like, for causing all of this turmoil all around.
Correct. And that's something I've been working with Madison on, which is not beating herself up over it. I think that's something really easy to do for anybody that is plans to or goes through divorce. I think it's really easy to beat yourself up for all of that turmoil, all that mess, all the financial instability that not only are you causing your children, but you're causing everyone around you. And you just can't do that.
Yeah,
it sucks, but beating yourself up over getting out of a situation where you were really unhappy, we both made the best decision for our children, and ultimately they come first. It's hard, and it sucks, and both of us have had extremely difficult years. This year was very, very, very tough for everybody, but that's life. We move on. And so thank you guys so much for listening. If anybody's out there listening that has experience with this, with how it affected your parents, or if you're a grandparent, how you see it, how you feel, if you're a parent, and what are your fears if your children get divorced and how will you handle it? The whole point is to have a conversation, have this community, support everyone. You guys have been doing an amazing job in the comments. The Facebook group has been on fire.
I love the Facebook group. We've got our first mail.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to do. I need to shout him out real quick.
Ross was so happy that we finally got
Travis Lemon. Okay, Travis, listen. And Elizabeth Welsh.
Yeah.
We are shouting you out. Elizabeth turned Travis on,
Yeah.
her boyfriend, to the podcast.
It's amazing.
And he is part of the Facebook group. He made a comment in the
Yeah.
Facebook group. And Travis is going to get hooked up with a $50 gift card to the Pen and Unicorn store, penandunicorn.com. You're going to pick out your swag. You're going to wear it with pride.
And to
And
send some love logos, like merch will be on there here soon.
and by the way, Elizabeth, his girlfriend, goes, I turned him on, so I'm going to steal all his swag. I was like,
I love it.
Love it. So Travis, shout out. Men, we know you're listening. Get in the Facebook group. Make some comments on the YouTube video. We want to hear from you. We're doing this for you as well. Hopefully, all of you got both perspectives today from the woman's perspective, the man's perspective. We love all of you. We'll be back next week with episode 10.
10, which is going to be our last episode for a while. Or we're going to have about 2 weeks off, right?
2 or 3 weeks off because we're going on holiday.
And then this guy's traveling a lot in January. So we'll be back though, but we've got some exciting guests for when we come back. It's good. You guys you'll be floored when you hear. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for tuning in. Follow us at Penny Unicorn.
Have a great holiday season. And we're around on social if you want to catch up.
Yeah. We
love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Running.